Thank you, Rabba. Thank you so much. Our people are still joining us, and we didn't start on time, but forgive us for that because we had a few technical hitches. We have with us this morning our DMD, who is ever caring and wants to know that we are well and taken care of, Mr. Emmanuel Odartey-Lamptey. He's here with us this morning. And then we have Dr. Humphrey, who heads our clinic or medical team. Dr. Humphrey? He doesn't care. He does. His boss is here, so you can know very well that he cares very well. And we have our head of HR, Kwabena Yeboah. He's with us this morning. We have Andrew. He's with us this morning. And then we have our nurses and our colleagues sitting with us. All protocols observed. And then this morning we have a very special guest. In fact, when I look at his resume, I should call it a resume because this is very well written. He's well accomplished. He goes by the name Dr. McCarthy, Dr. Michael McCarthy. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd like to read a little bit about Dr. McCarthy. He's a board-certified obstetrician, gynecologist with qualifications in Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, MBCHB, Fellow of West African College of Surgery, FWACS. He joined Sinel Specialist Hospital. So personnel from Sinel Hospital are with us this morning. They have devoted their time to come and take us through breast cancer, the havoc it causes on us, how we can deal with the situation early enough to survive and to have a fruitful life. So I present to you Dr. McCarthy this morning. Thank you for joining us. Before then, our DMD has a few words for us before we start. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. And then good morning to our resource persons from Sinel Specialist Hospital. I'm excited that GCB is always in a lead position when it comes to not only banking business, where we set for ourselves our ambition to dominate this market. In fact, our ambition stretches beyond just financial goals. Corporate social responsibility, thank you very much. Corporate social responsibility is a very key part of what we seek to achieve over the next 3-4 years and into the foreseeable future. And we've all heard several times when we say GCB is more than a bank. It's indeed more than a bank because we play a very pivotal role, not only in the economic development of our country, but also in supporting, I hope I'm not standing in front of Dr. McCarthy, in supporting social causes and goals like breast cancer. And this morning we are here to support this agenda of raising awareness around breast cancer as part of our broader social corporate responsibility that we set for ourselves. So this morning we encourage all staff to be part of this, listen attentively. There'll be a lot of knowledge sharing during this 30 minutes or 1 hour that we set for ourselves this morning. Please feel free to ask questions and know that you are working for a bank that is more than just providing experience, a better experience to our customers, that is interested in promoting social causes. Yes, we have over 2,000 staff in GCB, not even including contract staff. If we all continue to support this awareness creation in our homes, in our communities, I believe that GCB would not only dominate in financial terms, but our influence across Ghana and in supporting the economic development of Ghana and also in social goals will be felt everywhere and in every part of this country. So on this note, I would want to hand over to Dr. Anna. I think Dr. Anna, let's give him a round of applause. This is so critical for us that we don't only look at numbers, deposit volumes, returns, and all of that, but also creating awareness within this bank and beyond. So thanks for this time. Dr. Anna, I want you to say a few words. I don't know whether we also invite Kwabena. This is a very key part of our HR agenda. I think I'll hand over to them to say a few words as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamptey. Indeed, it's a privilege, as you said, also to be amongst you, my colleagues, this morning. This month, October, it's a global breast cancer awareness month, as we all know. From the beginning of this month, we've been at the clinic level, we've been here calling for our ladies, our gentlemen to come to us for free breast examinations. What do we mean by free breast examination? We want you to just pop in, get your breast examined, because early detection saves lives. This sentence has been a big motto or mantra for a couple of years now, whilst breast cancer awareness is celebrated across the world. Because once anything in your breast is detected early enough, the chances of survival is mind-blowing. So we encourage all of us, we have about a week left to the end of the month. Let's take advantage of it. Let's see my colleagues in the clinic, myself, for the free examination, because early detection saves lives. Thank you. I would hand the mic over to Kwabena to also say a little bit of.
Thank you, Dr. Na. Thank you, Mr. Lamptey. So thank you very much for coming this morning. I see a lot more females in the seated audience. I know there are a lot more also online. I just want to mention once again that breast cancer is not only an issue for women. It affects men as well. Of course, they are in a minority, but it still affects men. And as Dr. Na just said, it's a matter of early detection. So just take advantage of this, all the free examinations that are being done. If something is detected early, you know that the bank also has a very good healthcare system. So we'll be able to take care of it early. The point is that it's not about the money you're going to spend. We want to be able to do it in time and save a life, rather than do it very late and then spend all the money and still not be able to do what we intended to do. So please, take advantage of this. Listen intently. When you go home, you'll need to share these nuggets of wisdom and knowledge with your community, with your family, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much, and enjoy the session.
Okay, so let's give ourselves just about a minute whilst the microphone is mounted on Dr. McCarthy to start the presentation for us. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Yes. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. All right. I think I'll stand here right now. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's exciting to be in GCB, the biggest bank in Ghana. Yes. And my interaction with GCB started, well, didn't start then, but I had a significant interaction with GCB maybe about approximately 15 years ago, when they did exactly as Mr. Lamptey said. They started to impact lives outside just banking. I wrote a book on another important condition, uterine fibroids, and it was GCB that actually supported the production of this public health education book. So GCB really is having an impact, even in the space outside of banking. So congratulations to GCB. I'm excited to be back. Again, with health. I'm all about health. I'm all about women's health. I'm all about making sure that we can get the kind of care that is needed. And today we're going to speak about cancers. We'll narrow down also to breast cancer. Not just because this is a breast cancer month, but because it has an impact on your life. Men think that, oh yes, men can get breast cancer. 1% of breast cancers are in men, so that's why it's important for you. No, you have a woman in your life, a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, and other ones, which are all very important. So the women are with you. So it is not just about women, it is about every one of us. And today I'd like to give a presentation talking briefly about cancer, what it really is, what you need to do, what you need to know. I don't know whether my presentation is going to be running. Right. So I am from Sinel Specialist Hospital, and this is a health facility in Tema, started 40 years ago by my dad, specifically and only for women at that time. Of course, now we have expanded, we have grown, and it's maybe becoming as big as GCB, but maybe give us a bit more time. Now, in the world, in a year, there are almost 10 million cancer deaths. You guys are numbers. You guys are numbers people. So you understand 10 million. 10 million is not a small number. That is significant. 10 million people are dying, not are diagnosed, are dying. Therefore, many more are diagnosed with cancer worldwide. Unfortunately, a huge burden of this is in the developing world. That is a challenge. Commonest causes of cancer are lung, breast, stomach, colorectal, that is your intestines, especially the large intestine, and the rectum and anal region, esophageal cancer, cervical cancer. These are the commonest, and they cut across. Next slide, please. The commonest ones vary slightly between the men and the women. The breast cancer is much higher in the women, just because there's more breast tissue, and it comes the cancer have more estrogen, and so that makes them much more predisposed. And for men, it is more of lung cancer, driven almost entirely or hugely by tobacco smoke. Now, this could be either active smoking or passive smoking. That can be a big challenge. Prostate cancer in men, stomach cancer, liver cancer, cervix cancer in women, and stomach cancer. What are the causes? 20% is tobacco. 30%, and this is good news, 30% is good news, is by things that can be modified. That is behavioral and dietary risks. Is 30%. There's high body mass index, low fruit and vegetable intake, lack of physical activity, alcohol use. I know people don't want to hear alcohol use as a problem, but it actually is a problem. Both the alcohol and sometimes also the other components within. And then viral infections are very significant. All right, let's go to the next slide. Most of the new cancers are, a larger proportion, 60%, are in Africa, Asia, Central and South America, and therefore we need to take heed and we need to be part of this. What causes cancer? Now, cancer is caused by a complex set of things that all work together. So it's not just one thing that, oh, this is causing cancer. In certain circumstances, yes, that happens. But generally, there is a multitude of factors that work together to cause cancer. There are things we call carcinogens that work with your system to help your system to change. You can do the next slide. To help your system to change and cause cancer. Cancer basically is one cell. How many cells? One cell that decides that I will not be controlled by the rules. And you know what rules mean. I mean, you have compliance, you have audit, you have risk. You guys have it all. You are the rules people. You work with rules. If a cell says, I will not obey the rules, what happens? Utter and complete confusion, and that is what cancer is. One cell decides, I will not obey the rule, I just want to keep growing. Take cancer of the eye. One of the eye cells says, I want to just grow as big as a tennis ball. What happens? Your eye is gone. It's just as simple as that. And then, not only do these cells decide not to obey the rules of how to grow, they decide that I don't want to be where I am. I want to just spread to, I want to see other parts of the body. I want to travel the world. And so these cells then move to other parts where they are not supposed to be, and that's what creates all the problems. And so obviously, if this goes unchecked and uncontrolled, then it destroys your entire body, and death is the result. This is basically what cancer is about. Let's have the next slide. So there are physical carcinogens like sunlight, rays from the sun, ionizing radiations from ionizing radiation places, chemical things like tobacco, aflatoxin. Aflatoxin are certain chemicals found in foods like grains, like nuts, which as we consume go into our body. And so in some countries there's strict control of aflatoxins. I need to find out whether we're actually doing that in Ghana as well. Arsenic. Arsenic is a chemical that is found in the environment, but it's concentrated in places where there are things like gold and other precious minerals. And so when these are mined, then they release the arsenic into the environment, and then it goes into the population. So some studies have found that there is increased arsenic content in the bodies of miners, in the bodies of school children who live in mining areas. I hope we understand what is going on. And so, this is one of the reasons why we should be concerned about the galamsey issue that is going on. Because we are releasing some of these chemicals into the environment, not only where it is being used, but it's now spreading everywhere. It's going into our water treatment systems, and you know what is going to happen. And cancer does not just occur overnight. It is a process that takes years to happen. And so the things that we are doing today are going to affect us and our children in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And some of the things are not reversible. And then biological carcinogens like viruses, bacteria, and so on and so forth. And of course, increase in age. Cancer increases. As you are aging, then your risk of cancer also increases, because your body is aging, is not as adept at correcting cells that are not going in the way they should go. All right, let's have our next slide, which talks about a press release that was made in 2015 by the World Health Organization. And it says that they have now classified processed meat and red meat as, red meat is classified as a probable carcinogenic agent in humans, and processed meat as being carcinogenic in grade 1 of group 1. Now this is very significant. I mean, because look at what is in there: mammalian muscle like beef, pork, veal, lamb, and so on and so forth. Processed meat, we know what that is. Sausages, ham, corned beef, and so on and so forth. This is serious. They are not saying that, oh, if you eat too much of it, they are telling you that it is a carcinogen. Wow, that's important. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. All right. So the next slide just shows the publication. Let's go to the next slide. Now, what kind of perspective do we need to have? We need to have a perspective of, can we reduce mortality? Can we reduce our mortality? Now, what are the avoidable factors? Next slide. A good percentage of cancers can actually be prevented in various ways, and I'll go into that. addressing your tobacco use, addressing your body weight. I mean, people are saying that I'm big, so what's your problem? That is how I am. And my husband likes me like that. So what's your problem? Maybe not a problem, but we said it's a multifactorial issue. So you have the issue of excessive weight. Being overweight or obese, there can still be a problem. And that is a modifiable factor. Lack of physical activity, unhealthy diet, which has low fruits, low vegetables. I went yesterday to an eating place, and you know, the place where when you are going for the food, you can't serve yourself. They want to decide what you should eat. And so they are dishing for you. And I got to the vegetables place, and she picked 2 vegetables and put it on my plate. And I said, no, I want some more. And she picked another 2. And I said, no, I want more. And then she picked a huge little fork and dumped it on my plate. I said, thank you. You know, we don't have the mind and the culture and the habit of eating fruits and vegetables. It's a little bit difficult for us. Even when you're asking for more, they don't want to give you more. And it's something that we need to change. So maybe the next campaign should be the campaign for vegetables. Lack of physical activity, alcohol use, sexually transmitted infections. Cervical cancer is basically 98% sexually transmitted through human papilloma virus infection. Just that. If we can control just that sexually transmitted infection, we have controlled cervical cancer. Is it going to be that easy? That is easy, but in actual fact, it's not as easy. Urban air pollution and smoke from solid fuel use in confined. This is more for people in the rural areas where they're using solid consumable materials for their cooking. And you see these kitchens are in a room. If it's outdoor, it's better. If it's in a room and everything is all crowded and the smoke and the chemicals are all going through, cancer risk. And we may think living in a rural area is healthy, but we need to understand so that we can modify, put our kitchen outside rather than inside. Right, next slide, please. Now, there are 4 levels of prevention. 5 levels of prevention, 4 actually, but we've put in the first one, primordial, which has to do with your environment. And we spoke about galamsey a few minutes earlier and talked about arsenic in the environment. Now, you cannot control that. That is controlled by the entire nation. And so, if we are doing things that are causing us to have a global increased risk from our environment, then we have to look at it very carefully and see how can we intervene there and cause a change. So it's a little bit beyond the individual, and because it is very large and it's environmental and all over. The next one is the primary way of preventing cancers. That means that you do not have the cancer yet, and you are taking steps to make sure that you don't actually get the cancer. Like human papilloma virus immunization. You get immunized between the ages of 9 and 21, when usually sexual activity has not started. And so you are protected, and when you get exposed to that sexually transmitted infection in the future, you do not get infected with that, and your risk of getting cervical cancer reduced. That is primary. Hepatitis B immunization is also primary, because we know that hepatitis B causes liver cancer. And associated with prevention. Let's detect it early as soon as it is growing and deal with it at that time, and you have a higher survivability at that point. Tertiary is when it has been diagnosed and you're having challenges, you're having problems, and we want to make sure we mitigate and we try to reduce the challenge and the problem so that we don't get it to become worse. That is tertiary. Quaternary, to make sure that you don't get excessive medical treatment and get complications from your treatment, which may even be worse than your disease condition. Next slide, please. Talks about breast cancer itself. So let's briefly talk about this. I know there's going to be some screening, and they are going to show Dr. Davis is the team head for the screening, and she's going to go through the screening with you. But we also would like you to screen yourself or to check yourself on a monthly basis, and I'm sure they will teach you. So those who are interested in learning, you can see her, she will teach you. The following slides will also be prepared with Dr. Seshi, who is a surgical specialist in breast cancer. You can meet him at Sinel Specialist Hospital, and Dr. Elikem, who is a specialist in laboratory medicine. Let's go to the meat of that. So it's the commonest cancer of women in Ghana. It's a leading cause of death. I have seen it. I have seen both extremes. I've seen the ones who are treated at an early stage and it is solved. And I've seen the ones that they keep coming, and terminal illness, and that's the end. It's a leading cause of death. We need to take it seriously and take decisive action when it is diagnosed. I think we are diagnosing, maybe it's becoming more apparent now because there's a lot of awareness. The next step is that when you are diagnosed, do not wait for treatment. Your treatment should be now, not tomorrow. And that's very critical. That's very important. So that's the biggest problem. 60% of women delay after the diagnosis is made. So it's not an issue of we haven't diagnosed. The problem is that we are delaying with the treatment. And that's a big problem. All right, let's go to the next slide. So breast cancer occurs in the breast. There are many different types of breast cancer. Many different types of breast cancer that affect different parts of the breast. And they can also spread to the side, and they can spread into the armpit. So somebody feels a lump in the armpit. Oh, this is a boil. And then you all know how you treat boils. And you don't take it that serious. It could actually be a breast cancer. And then the breast cancer, one of the characteristics about breast cancer is that it's one of the cancers that spreads very quickly. It starts in the breast, and before you realize it's gone to the brain, it's gone to the lungs, it's gone to the spinal cord, it's gone to the bones, it's gone to different parts of your body very quickly. And so breast cancer is generally treated with chemotherapy as well as surgery so that we can treat the entire body and make sure that all those cells that have taken the toll of your body are dealt with. What are the specific risk factors for breast cancer? Let's have the next slide. Anybody who has breast is at risk. Men and women. Men and women. Yes, sir. Yes. You too. Men and women. So please, if you are, and the problem with the men is that the prognosis is worse because your breast is small. So as soon as you get the breast cancer, it's already consumed your breast and it's looking for other places. Whereas in the female, the breast is bigger, so it has a little bit of leeway to work. So if you think that you're having something in your breast, men, please see Dr. Na early, and he will see to you. Now, there's something I want to speak about, and then we conclude and leave you to Dr. Davis and her team. And that thing is called risk factors. Now, risk factors are things, circumstances, situations, and events that increases your chances of developing breast cancer. It doesn't mean that when you have a risk factor, then you have cancer, or that you develop it by all means. No. But it's a risk factor, and that tells you be more aware, be more cautious, and check more clearly. What are the risk factors? There are three groups: hormonal, non-hormonal, and genetic. So let's go to the hormonal risk factors. It's a little bit small. We'll just go through. Length of exposure to estrogen. Let me start with the men. So men who have liver disease have increased estrogen. And so that would then predispose you to breast cancer. So you need to be aware of that. But men don't have as much estrogen. Women have much more estrogen. And you know, when you see an adolescent girl, her chest is flat. When you see a girl pre-adolescent, her chest is flat. The boy his chest is also flat. They're all the same. Then what happens? Suddenly, estrogen starts to come into the system and the breast starts coming out. So you can see that the breast is very sensitive to estrogen. And it just grows like that. So if the menarche starts very early, we know menarche can be between 9 and 18 years old. It's normal. We are not saying that if you have your menarche at age 9, then you are going to get breast cancer, please. But it is a risk factor. So the earlier you have it, the more likely it's a risk factor that you could actually develop that. So any delay, if you have yours at 12, at 16, and so on, well, you're a bit more protected because you have less period of estrogen. Same goes for the end of life, end of reproductive life, during menopause, where if your menopause is very late, average age of menopause in Ghana is 48 years old. So if you are getting to 45, you start having the menopausal transition, you start having the hot flashes and changes and so on. 48, we're expecting that a good proportion of women in Ghana would experience their last menstrual period, and then this can stretch on later. But some people have their menopause much later, 52, 53, 55 years old. And those are also at risk of breast cancer because they have a longer exposure. Those who have a late age at first birth, 30 years and above, that means that you've been exposed to estrogen. Now, when you are pregnant for 9 months, you have a high dose of progesterone. So that gives you almost a year of progesterone in your system. So that puts you into protection. Whereas, if you are not getting a birth at that point, and we're not just talking about just getting pregnant and ending the pregnancy after 2 weeks. No, getting a birth because you need that prolonged exposure to progesterone. So the first full-term birth at age 18 will reduce your risk of breast cancer. I don't know whether that's a preventive strategy we should use or not. But that can have its own challenges in other realms. And so it just buttresses the point. Never having children obviously would then increase your risk of breast cancer because then you have a longer period of unopposed estrogen, not unopposed estrogen, but estrogen without having any length of pregnancy in between. Breastfeeding reduces the risk of breast cancer because it also reduces the estrogen in your system. It reduces ovulation. It makes you less fertile within that period of time. People have misconstrued this and said, okay, so men should suck breast so that the breast cancer will reduce. And then they go and tell the wife, look, you get breast cancer, you better. And it's not like that. It's not just the physical action of sucking the breast which reduces the breast cancer risk. Okay. He doesn't want me to reveal all the secrets because but the process of breastfeeding a baby and that entire process and what it does and hormonally what it does on all the other hormones in her body, which actually reduce the risk. And so that's one of the reasons why we should encourage breastfeeding by babies. And prolong it 6 months, 12 months, even more if possible. And being overweight after menopause, and that's a challenge because as a woman, your metabolic rate starts to reduce, and then menopause and so on, and you definitely tend to put on weight, and most of the time it's also at the dangerous areas of the middle part of your body and so on, but that puts you at risk. Hormone replacement therapy, oral contraceptive use, if you have used them for a prolonged period of time. The good thing about that is that as soon as you stop, the rate is reversed. And so you are fine. I think we need to end now. So this is about risk factors. Let's see, what other slide do we have? Risk factors, and then non-hormonal, things that you cannot change, your age. So from age 35, we have noted that in Ghana, the younger women, when I say younger, 35, as opposed to 45 and 55, are actually getting breast cancer. So don't think that it's a disease of the 60, 70, 80. It can actually occur at 35 and that can be a challenge. It is rare under the age of 25 years old. Alcohol, diet, physical activity, and breast treated with radiation. This breast treated with radiation does not include the use of the computer screen, does not include mammogram, and so on. So please don't get that one wrong. Next slide, please. If you've had a previous breast cancer in one breast, you're at a higher risk of having breast cancer in the other breast. And that is very important, so that you screen the other breast as well. Next slide, please. And if you have a first-degree relative who has breast cancer, it also puts you at risk. There is a familial cancer where people get breast cancer because they have certain genetic modifications. They are almost sure to get breast cancer. Those are the minority, 5% of women who get breast cancer. So that is smaller. But if you have a first-degree relative, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and so on, who has breast cancer, then you are likely also to be at higher risk. Next slide, please. All right. So, next slide, please. Right. So basically, we need to do screening to prevent breast cancer risk. Let's go to the next slide, please. There are 5 steps to screening. You do your own. I really wish I were a VIP like that, where when I go somewhere and then they're... Good day, sir. So, the 5 steps to screening are routine self-exams, where you examine yourself monthly. Examine yourself, and the next slide will show that in a minute. Knowing your risk so that you can be more vigilant. Visiting Dr. Na more frequently. Getting a mammogram from age 40 onwards, every 1 or 2 years. If there are some people who the doctors may require us to do it from 35 years onwards. And then follow up after the screening tests. And then do the examinations as we are going to do for GCB today. This is how you try to look for changes in your breast. Now, an important thing, a lot of women ask me, so doctor, is this normal? What do I do? How do I know? You don't need to know anything. The only thing you need to know is to know your breast. That's all you need to know. So become aware of what your breasts are like. That is all. You don't need to be a specialist. You don't have any training in anything. Just be aware of what is normal for you. What is normal? So you stand in front of the mirror and you look. Do you see any changes on the skin? Is the skin smooth? Do you see some places being pulled in? What's the direction of the nipple? Is it changing? What is the shape, the contour? Are there any ulcers? Are there any obvious lumps? So you are trying to understand what your breast normally looks like. And then you go on to touch your breast. Please, your breast starts from here and goes to the side. It's not just what you see in the front, but there is also that part we call the tail, or axillary tail of the breast, which goes to the side. That is part of the breast as well. And that can be the first place where breast cancer can also start. And so you examine with your hand. It is more comfortable to actually lie down on a surface for the examination, because then the breast sits on your chest rather than hangs down aided by gravity. And if you are anything older than anybody, you know how the breasts behave over time. They don't retain what you wish them to retain. But when you lie down, you are fine. So you lie down, and then you do your examinations. They are going to demonstrate that to you today when you go and see them. There are different ways of examining. You could use the up and down approach that is shown here, or you could use the circular approach, which goes around. And you make sure you address the side. And then you also address the armpit area, which is also extremely important. So please, We have a team here today. They are going to assist you. They are going to do these examinations for you, and you have the opportunity. The men can also go, but I know it will be generally for the women, so that we can do these examinations and then see what else is needed. If you're at age 40 and above, we can recommend other things that need to be done, and so on and so forth, so that we can try to find what is going on. I know time is up, so I'll end here. Do have probably 100 more slides, so that I can open the floor for questions, any other comments from you. So thank you very much for your attention. Grateful to you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. McCarthy, for a great presentation as usual. And one key thing he said is that, see, where the men are mostly interested in is around the front or the frontal part of the breast. But the breast doesn't only end at that place. So bear in mind that the breast goes all the way almost into your armpits. Okay, all right. So at this moment, we'll open the floor for questions.
Just keep the floor open. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you for a very insightful presentation. Now, let me just ask. I worked with a lady in my previous life who went for her annual medical check. It was done. She was cleared. 2 months later, she had identified a lump in her breast, went back to the same hospital in the UK, did the same checks again, and she had breast cancer stage 2. In 2 months. Is that, what accounts for this?
Yeah, interesting observation. It tells you how cancer behaves and how difficult it is to actually diagnose the breast cancer. There are different levels. If the woman was less than 40, she may not have had a mammogram done. And so it may have been a physical examination, which will find a mass which the resolution 10 millimeters, 2 centimeters is what you can actually feel with your hand. So if you have a 0.2 millimeter mass, a centimeter mass, or a 5 millimeter mass, you may not palpate that with your hand. And that's a drawback. But if you use an ultrasound, you may see that mass a little earlier, or a mammogram can see really small masses that are starting to form. So it depends on the person's age. And you know also that at a younger age, the breast is more dense, whereas as you grow older, the breast becomes less dense, just because of hormones and age and so on. So depending on what modality was used to check, it is just screening. So you may not find what you are looking for at screening. So that may be a false negative screen. The converse happens, where you may have a false positive screen. Oh, there's something. Is it cancer? They say it's cancer, yes. But then when you go into the actual diagnosis, you realize that it's not actually cancer. So we have those two areas. And so we need to just be very much aware. And that's why one of the important things I spoke about was breast awareness. And this lady was aware. She didn't say, I was cleared, and so I'm not going to check again for a year. She actually did check, probably the first month and the second month, and found it. And that self-examination is what saved her life. And that's what we are promoting, that you become aware so that you take control of your health. So, yeah, that is entirely possible. And these are the ways we can mitigate that. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Right. I have one very important question and a second ancillary one. My question is about the cost implications for treating breast cancers once they're identified. If you could share some thoughts around the various stages and how the costs can best be managed. You may touch on the role of insurance or employers' contributions or what personal savings can lead to and so on and so forth, especially when it comes to some of the more incisive ones and how far they can go. The second ancillary one is what role can the husband play in helping to identify if there's a lump in the wife's breast? Thank you.
You're going to take more questions before we answer. Maybe 2 or 3.
So we could take more questions. We'll just note the questions down, and then we'll answer them in bulk. Yeah.
Let me ask another one. To follow up the last question. How, and that one maybe is more to Dr. Na, and maybe Dr. McCarthy can also shed some light on that. But as a bank, GCB Bank, okay, what preventive measures have we put in place on the health scale to ensure that illnesses like breast cancer, prostate, these things which are on the front burner today, that we are well aware of them and that we are checking to make sure that staff are safe. What have we done? I have told you before where I worked previously, it was mandatory for ladies of a certain age and men of a certain age to undergo certain tests just to make sure that they were catered for the health front very strongly. So in this modern world and in this traumatic era, what does GCB have for all the beautiful ladies here? How do we protect their breast? All the young men here, how do we protect whatever they need to protect? Prostate is real, huh?
Very
Prostate
real.
is real. It's
Very
tearing
real.
down homes and people and livelihood. Same for breast cancer. Are we just sitting and watching until it happens? And then Phil's question becomes real about the cost.
More questions, I guess.
Okay, please, I wanted to know that aside the lifestyle that you've mentioned, like smoking, excessive drinking, and other thing that is prone to cause, you become susceptible to breast cancer. And aside family history, I know of a person who neither drinks nor smokes, nor have any family history of breast cancer, but still, and she also gave birth to about 7, but still she had breast cancer. So can you recommend maybe some special diet or something that can help us boost our immune system as women and can make us get some resistance? And I also want to find out about the patronage of used clothing. Can it also be a cause of maybe a viral infection or something that can affect breast? Because we see people buying used bras and co. That people, I remember somebody said he bought a bra and had a rash on the breast, and it developed into multiple complications. So some of these things, can they also cause other infections that may lead to cancer or other things? I want to be clear about that. And especially the lifestyle, aside drinking and smoking, what are some of the healthy things that we should do to help us to maintain a healthy way to fight against breast cancer? Thank you.
Any more questions?
One more.
Maybe just one more so that we, yes, because of time.
Thank you very much. In your presentation, you said that in Ghana, you've noticed that women 35 years and below are now susceptible to getting breast cancer. Is there any research that indicates why this is the case? And if we don't have abundance of research in this regard, can you share a few thoughts as to why this could be happening? Thank you.
Thank you. Brilliant questions. I think GCB has the most brilliant minds, and they are applying it to every aspect. And that's really, thank you so much for. Used clothing does not cause breast cancer. Used clothing, I don't know. I think it's an opportunity for business. So yes, why are we not manufacturing new bras in Ghana? I don't know why. Yes, some breast cancer is spontaneous. It just occurs. Not family history. You don't have the risk factors and so on and so forth. And that is why you're not looking and say, oh, me, I'm fine. No, you are checking yourself too. That's really important. How can husbands do this? Husbands can remind their wives that it's time for a monthly check. Check your breasts. The month has ended, check your breast. If agreed, you can structure her screening time for her. You can say, look, you are going to do it every first of the month. Or can we agree when to do it? Usually it's best to do it when the period has ended, the days after the period has ended, because just before and during ovulation, there may be more discomfort on that. So you'd want to help her schedule the timing. Also, scheduling the yearly screening. Men are very reluctant to go to hospital. Women are more ready to go to hospital, especially when they have problems. But men can structure the yearly screening because the women may want to postpone it. And so the men can come in there and say, hey, it's time for you to go. And then you go with her as well. So you also get your checks done at the same time. So that is how husbands can be involved. Yes. Well, men can also examine their breasts if they want to. But you see, the problem with men examining their breasts is that they get distracted. So there is a lump, and they will not even see. That is the problem. They may not even see that there's a problem. To them, everything is okay. So I don't think the men examining the women's breast is anything to write home about. Please, if you want to examine the breast for other reasons, go ahead. But don't let that be the screening. You may end up having stage 4 cancer because you think that maybe the breast is just growing bigger and you're happy. So that may not help us at all. The other question was about primary prevention. GCB preventive things that GCB could do. I think this is an excellent thought, and I'm not surprised that this is coming from GCB because you are progressive and you are always doing things to affect positively the health of your people. Mandatory is the way to go. The problem is that the staff may say we won't do because she doesn't want to do it. But it doesn't matter. We can put it down mandatory. You can apply financing to that and find cost-effective ways of doing some of the mandatory checks. I would say my dad, of blessed memory, was cured of prostate cancer. And this was just a routine screening and checking of the prostate and found out there seems to be something here. And then he goes to the specialist, and the specialist says, this is prostate cancer. And then we go to another specialist and have the treatment done. Right here, I'm talking of here in Ghana. I'm not talking of taking them abroad. I'm talking of right here in Ghana. Treatment was done, and that was probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I don't even remember exactly the dates. But prostate cancer screening is important for men. It's important, and we can make it mandatory in the bank. I mean, I don't know how your things work, but that's probably, human beings want to relax all the time. We don't want pressure. We don't want anybody to be checking, especially the men. You don't want anybody to be checking and seeing what is going on down there. So it becomes a problem. But when it becomes mandatory, you need to do it. Some of the screening is with a blood test. And of course, some is also physical examination. But once it's mandatory and it has to be done, I think that it will work. The other things are about the primary prevention is increasing physical activity and opportunity for physical activity for staff. I mean, even getting here this morning was a hassle because you need to leave 2.5 hours before the scheduled time to be able to get here. So that is your physical activity time, and you are driving, and that's sedentary for 2 hours. And then you get here, and it's also sedentary, and then you have to get back on time, and it's also sedentary, and it's 10 p.m. by the time you get home. So obviously, something must be done by the bank to allow for physical activity at work. Maybe this is Accra, maybe in the rural area, it may be much easier for the bank worker to get to the bank. And so it may be not a global, it may be tailored to circumstances, but increasing physical activity is a major thing. Managing overweight and obesity is a serious issue because it's extremely difficult. Extremely difficult, but it can be done. And so can be extremely difficult, and it becomes a problem, but it is a risk. Yes, that's a real issue. So these are some of the things, but I'm sure Dr. Now will have some few things. Last one is about cost of treatment. A cost of treatment is a challenge. The cost is financial cost, is physical discomfort cost, is time away from activities. Could be work if the person is still in employment, could be other things that the person is doing after retirement, and so on. A cost of the caregivers of the person, because if a significant person in your family has breast cancer and needs to be cared for, that means that person too is losing economic activity. The cost is huge, extremely huge. It disrupts the entire family, it disrupts everything, it disrupts even your spiritual life. Because when you're that unwell and ill, you can't even pray. You can't go to church and they'll forget about you if you're not careful. And so the cost is huge. Financially, I think health insurance schemes cover some aspect of breast cancer care in Ghana, and some other things are happening. I know some organizations pay for breast cancer care for their staff and so on. There's a high cost of medication because of chemotherapy, quite expensive. And then surgical therapy, also expensive. And then the rehabilitation. So from the financial point of view, there can be some help from the bank on that side. But more important, or additionally also, there must be the social help to be able to cope with the other aspects that are going on. And that can be extremely significant. Let me allow you to answer that question too.
Okay. So, MD always likes putting me on the health economics aspect. Right. So, as Dr. McCarthy said rightly, cost of treatment of cancers, he didn't mention figures, and he intelligently chose not to mention figures because it can range from a few tens of thousands into you can't quantify it. You can get into the millions, you know. And that is a big concern for your employer, a big concern for your family, a big concern for your social environment, your church and everything. Everybody in your environment has to come on board because one single body cannot handle it. Even the health insurance, if your cancer drags on, which some people unfortunately or fortunately have their cancers dragging on for a couple of years, even that one, the insurance might not be able to cover you till the end. That shows how serious cancers can be. Right. With GCB, which is the premier bank in Ghana, currently, we're not going to talk about the past, but currently, we've enforced mandatory annual health screening, which is going to take care of some of these concerns of our daily lives. I think I must commend the management for approving such. such an initiative. Yes, such an initiative. Yes, it's already ongoing. Yes. And also, I must say that Dr. McCarthy also literally mentioned it, but I would reiterate it. Healthcare is a shared concern or responsibility. MD's question touched on something, and Dr. McCarthy rightly answered it. The woman, after 2 months, saw it herself. She detected it herself. Because anything can happen in between your regular doctor visits. Anything can happen in between. You can visit the doctor today, and by the next week, you are detecting something on your body which you need to go back to. You don't wait and say, I've done my annual health check, everything is fine, so I'm unconcerned about anything. Let us share the responsibility of taking care of our own bodies, which God gave us. Okay? So with that aspect, GCB being the premier bank, I'll let the head HR even touch a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Na. I just want to write on what he just said about it being a shared responsibility. So this is what I want to say. The bank will do whatever it takes to approve some of these programs, roll them out, and so on and so forth. But there needs to be that reciprocity. What I mean is this. We are rolling out this, the mandatory health checks. What we don't want to hear is, I don't want to go, I don't want to. Look at what we did with COVID. How many of us are fully vaccinated, for instance? You see? So when the opportunity comes and the doctor said this one needs to be done, let us do it. Let us take advantage of it now. Let's take advantage of it now to prevent it. That's the first and most important thing. So when we start these annual checks and so, we are going to continue from January. There will be some program. We are going to do some announcements and so on. Please ensure that you do it on time and you take advantage of it. We are not going to come after you with any, but it's a good thing for you to do. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we've been able to cover the questions, every question as it came. Because of time, we would want our managing director to give us a closing remark before we disperse.
Thank you. I wanted to find out the screening, like mammogram, if it's yearly, is it not also exposing your breast to the radiation? Is it not going to have any effect, please? Thank you.
Right, thank you for that question. That brings to the fore something that people have in their minds, that radiation, cancer. Yes, I also mentioned it. Now, the amount, a mammogram has a very, very, very low dose of X-ray. Now, when you look at an X-ray of your chest, what do you see? You only see bones, isn't it? An X-ray of your chest, you only see bones. So the kind of radiation that is used on an X-ray is very, very, very different from that which is used for a mammogram. Now you do this mammogram on the breast and you look at the picture and you see the fat cells and the lobules. Something that first you're seeing only bones, you're not seeing any other tissue. Now when you do it on the breast, you see this very clear outline of the breast. That tells you that the dosage used was very, very minimum. So having your regular screening mammograms is not going to increase your risk of cancer. That is not the cause of cancer, because the dose is extremely small and tailored to meet the screening requirement. Thank you. Every year or two. And remember that you are not working alone, you're also working with your doctors. So you'll be discussing with them what are your risk factors. He's going to look at your risk factors and what has happened in the past and your current state and everything. So he will then advise how frequently you should do your screening.
All right, thank you very much. I think that was an insightful discussion. Before MD comes on, We are conducting screening at both the head office and Circle GCB Tower. So all staff who are ready should go in for their screening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, so what happens to the branches? How are they being catered for? If it is Circle and GCB Towers?
So I'm working with our zonal offices, and then we are engaging regional hospitals to also set up in our zonal office to do the same
Good
screening process.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. Time is fast spent, and I think we've had an excellent presentation from Dr. McCarthy. This is all not happening by chance, okay? One of the greatest assets of this bank is its staff, human capital. It is part of our strategy to develop our human capital, and therefore we need to pay attention to health. If our staff are not healthy, whatever we want to achieve will be a real challenge. So all of this is happening not just by chance, but it's deliberate. And I think we must continue. We shouldn't wait for World Breast Day before we want to attend to our beautiful breasts. We must continuously look after ourselves. Because if you don't even love yourself, I tell people all the time, think about your children, think about your spouse, think about your parents, and the challenge you will bring to them if you fell ill through any of these challenging illnesses. It's true that man proposes and God disposes, okay. So we should do what we need to do. Looking after ourselves, we must do it, and then leave the rest for God. It does not mean that if you look after yourself, you will not fall ill. You will still fall ill. But in an organized way, if you look after yourself, you are more likely to avoid some of these illnesses. Or they will be determined early. And once they are determined early, then you can deal with them. So let's encourage each other that health is important. Look at me talking, you'll be saying. But yeah, I know health is really, really important. Place it on your number one agenda. It will help you, it will help your family, and we will live much more comfortable lives. So thank you all for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, go and do your breast checks. And the gentlemen, when the right time is, go and do your prostate. Prostate is very important and devastating now. People are waiting. We thought it was for older men at 60. Now, it's getting even to those in their early 50s. So let's take our health seriously. We, as management of the bank, recognize that human capital is key, and we will do everything possible. But like you've heard, dual responsibility. We will do our own. You also do your own. And I'm sure we'll all live healthy lifestyles till 100. Inshallah. So, thank you very much. Dr. Na, Corporate Affairs, HR, all of you who were involved in putting all of this together. Thank you very much. We have a lot of work to do, we know, but these little things, now and again, are very important because they leave us thinking about our health and our lifestyles. So thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Looking at the time, so MD fortunately did the rest of the program for us. We'll invite Auntie Vida to offer a short prayer, and then we'll be out of here.
Please, let's be on our feet. We thank you, mighty God and everlasting Father, for such a great program that has been organized for us here. We commit the bank into your hand. We commit the staffs into your hand. Health-wise, Lord, be with us. Help us to be able to be aware of some of these things so that going forward, we will not encounter cancers in our system. We thank you. We bless you. Commit this great bank into your hand. Thank you for a successful program in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
So screening is ongoing. Feel free to drop in and get that done. Thank you. Circle, they are on the second floor. Please, we are taking a picture, so kindly join the executives. Kindly join the executives for a picture, please. Please join. They are taking